Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Girivaradhari, Jaya Yashodanandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Yashoda Nandana, Jaya Braja Janaranjana, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jai Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha, Jai Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radha, Jai Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Madhav ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhaktavrind ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Text 26. This chapter is entitled Remembrance of Lord Krishna. Please repeat after me. Tato Nanda Vrajam Mitta, Tato Nanda Vrajam Mitta, Pitrakang Savibhyata, Pitrakang Savibhyata, Ekadasha Samastatra, Ekadasha Samastatra, Gudharchi Sabalo Vasat.
Gudharchi Sabalo Vasat.
Tata thereafter, Nanda Vrajam, cow pastures of Nanda Maharaj. Ita being brought up, Pitra by his father, Kangsad from Kansa, Vibhibhyata being afraid of, Ekadasha 11, Sama years, Tatra therein, Gudha Archi covered fire, Sabala with Baladev, Avasat resided. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thereafter his father, being afraid of Kansa, brought him to the cow pastures of Maharaj Nanda. And there he lived for 11 years like a covered flame with his elder brother Baladev. Once again, thereafter his father, being afraid of Kansa, brought him to the cow pastures of Nanda Maharaj. And there he lived for 11 years like a covered flame with his elder brother Baladev. Purport. There was no necessity of the Lord's being dispatched to the house of Nanda Maharaj out of fear of Kansa's determination to kill him as soon as he appeared. It is the business of the Asuras to try to kill the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to prove by all means that there is no God, or that Krishna is an ordinary human being and not God. Lord Krishna is not affected by such determination of men of Kansa's class. But in order to play the role of a child, he agreed to be carried by his father to the cow pastures of Nanda Maharaj, because Vasudeva was afraid of Kansa. Nanda Maharaj was due to receive him as his child, and Yashoda Mai was also to enjoy the childhood pastimes of the Lord. And therefore, to fulfill everyone's desire, he was carried from Mathura to Vrindavan, just after his appearance in the prison house of Kansa. He lived there for 11 years and completed all his fascinating pastimes of childhood, boyhood, and adolescence with his elder brother, Lord Baladev, his first expansion. Vasudev's thought of protecting Krishna from the wrath of Kansa is part of a transcendental relationship. The Lord enjoys more when someone takes him as a subordinate son who needs the protection of a father than he does when someone accepts him as a supreme Lord. He is the father of everyone, and he protects everyone. But when his devotee takes it for granted that the Lord is to be protected by the devotee's care, it is a transcendental joy for the Lord. Thus, when Vasudeva, out of fear of Kansa, carried him to Vrindavan, the Lord enjoyed it. Otherwise, he had no fear from Kansa or anyone else. Om Jnanam Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadammayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So this is a very, actually it's a very amazing chapter, Remembrance of Lord Krishna, because it's just a very sweet chapter. It's like the devotees remembering the Supreme Lord and his wonderful pastimes, and particularly Krishna's pastimes of dependence, how he's dependent on the care of his two sets of parents, Vasudeva and Devaki, and Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. And in this purport, so many nice, wonderful points are being made about the transcendental exchange between the Lord and his devotee, how the Lord and his devotee are in this amazing transcendental exchange that externally cannot be appreciated. If one sees it externally, one sees it to be very difficult to understand, or very, you could say, imbalanced or partial. But internally, how there's this very deep exchange going on between the Lord and his devotees, and how by certain activities Krishna fulfills the desires of everyone. And here Srila Prabhupada has mentioned that he agrees to go to Vrindavan because this was the desire of Vasudeva and Devaki out of their paternal affection for the Lord. Due to their intimate, spontaneous affection for the Lord, their desire was that Kansa not be able to kill Krishna. Their desire was to protect Krishna. They wanted that Krishna should go to a place where he is protected and loved and has a normal childhood. He has a regular childhood with the cows in a home, in the village, the way children should grow up. And in the prison house or at the hands of Kansa, he would not have a regular childhood. He would grow up in fear. And in the same way, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan were desiring Krishna. They were desiring that Krishna come to Vrindavan and his enchanting pastimes be revealed to them and to the whole world. And we all know the story that how in their previous life, Yashoda and Nanda Baba were Drona and Droni, right? These two great saintly sages who were husband and wife, and they were worshiping the Lord together. And they specifically prayed to the Lord that may he appear and reveal his pastimes for the benefit of the whole world. So they were in a paternal rasa with the Lord, Vatsalya rasa, but their prayer was that may he appear in this world and reveal his charming pastimes for the whole world. And being very pleased by their selfless prayer of pure love and the selfless prayer of pure devotion, they wanted the Lord to appear for others. And being so pleased by their motivation, their mood, Mother Krishna gave special mercy to them and displayed all of his pastimes to them alone. But then after, in reading this, I was thinking about Vasudeva and Devaki, that how, they lived in separation from the Lord. And here it said just for 11 years. So in his 12th year, right, Krishna goes back to Mathura and fights Kansa. And we oftentimes see Krishna's paintings in Vrindavan as, a full youth, 16-year-old boy. But actually, all of the Rasa Leela, everything that Krishna did was before the age of 12. He was just a little child. And Prabhupada actually uses this as an argument where he says that in boys, there is no, they don't reach adolescence. There's no puberty before the age of 12. 11, absolutely not before 11. And here it's said that at 11 years, he left. He lived there for 11 years. So the exchange between the gopis and Krishna could not have been a material exchange. It's actually, you see children, they go through phases. When they're very small, then it's a boy or girl, it's irrelevant. They don't realize, the difference. There's no difference in their mind between boys and girls. And then until they reach the age of puberty, generally the boys, when they grow a little older, and the girls when they grow a little older, unless they're siblings, the boys don't like to be around the girls, and the girls don't like to be around the boys. They kind of like, once they do have a sense of difference, like after the age of 6, once they become a little more mature, but not until they have reached puberty, they actually stay separate. They sort of resent the other gender because their interests are quite different. And then after puberty, then they become interested in each other. But Krishna left before puberty. And so for a mundane child, he should not have been interested in girls at all. If anything, he should have been averse to them in play, so to say. And the gopis similarly would not be interested in Krishna. But this was a transcendental exchange. And so just in 11 years, Krishna performed all those wonderful pastimes, such beautiful pastimes. And Vasudeva and Devaki, sitting in the prison house, they missed everything. They missed it all. They were only in the prison house. And I was thinking that, Krishna seems to be so partial to one set of devotees. He's revealing everything to the Lord, to them. And to another set of devotees, they are weeping in the prison house in separation from Krishna. And how to understand this? So actually, it is only Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who has helped us understand this, that whichever position the devotee may be, either he is in union with the Lord or in separation from the Lord, the devotee is always savoring the Lord. He's always relishing the Lord, and he's experiencing a transcendental joy from within the heart. And in fact, what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells us, his philosophy, is that in that separation, the devotee actually experiences a higher joy, a higher pleasure than in the union. In that separation, the devotee is actually feeling more blissful. He's actually feeling a greater joy than when he is with the Lord, even though it's also painful. And that's the transcendental dichotomy here. Even though that separation is very biting, and because it is, the devotee is always wanting to see Krishna. If it was fully, no problem, then why would they always try to see Krishna? It is very difficult, yet it is also the highest experience of ecstasy. Just like it's described that when Krishna plays on his transcendental flute and all the gopis rush to see Krishna, then some of the gopis are stopped by their husbands and family members, and are successfully stopped by them. They are all stopped, but some of them escape just in time. But some of them are successfully stopped, and they are locked in their homes. And it's described, the Bhagavatam describes at that point, that those gopis, in their meditation in separation from the Lord, they embrace the Lord within their hearts. They actually burn their material bodies, and they embrace the Lord in their meditation. So those gopis that were unable to go, that very much like Vasudeva and Devaki, were locked up within their homes, they were very much like in a prison. For them, that was like a prison, like Vasudeva and Devaki. And like the gopis, Vasudeva and Devaki also in that prison were embracing the Lord within their hearts. And so they were actually more fortunate. The gopis in Vrindavan who were not able to see Krishna were more fortunate, because the gopis who went there out of social custom and out of shyness, they could not embrace Krishna, at least not immediately. In the Rasa dance described them, they do embrace, Krishna embraces them, but they when they go there, then they are able to see Krishna but not exactly embrace him. But those who were meditating on the Lord, they were actually able to embrace Krishna. So they were even more fortunate. They were experiencing this highest ecstasy of love of God. And this is very much characteristic of the path of bhakti, that sometimes a devotee is more fortunate when they are in a more difficult circumstance or have a less privileged position, because their position becomes a catalyst for their advancement in spiritual life. Like Vritasura tells Indra, he tells Indra that we are fighting and you will certainly be successful, because this is what the Lord has determined, that you will conquer. You will conquer me. This is foretold by the Lord. But I am actually the one who has won this battle, because by being killed by you, I am being relieved of my material body, and I can return back home, back to Godhead, and attain the same destination that you are aspiring for. So I'll attain it earlier than you. I'll get to the finish line faster than you. So Vritasura tells Indra that you're such a fool, because Indra was really in the winning mood at that time, in the conquering mood. And he says, you are wanting to enjoy this heavenly kingdom, but actually, by being killed by you, I will get relieved of my material body and be able to see you. So no one is unfortunate in the Lord's pastimes. And on the plea of being afraid of the demons, although Krishna has no fear, it said, he has no fear of Kansa. Krishna does all these wonderful pastimes simply to increase the love of his devotee. And we saw in that previous verse, 327, I think that was, this is 20, no, it was, I forget which exactly verse it was, but we saw how when Vasudeva is taking Krishna across the Yamuna river, then Krishna purposely falls into the river, so that Vasudeva, it's described, goes mad trying to find Krishna, mad out of love for Krishna. So again, to increase his love for him, Krishna again goes into the river. Again, that separation. And due to that separation, Vasudeva becomes mad in love for Krishna. And here, due to Kansa, again, Krishna is being separated from Vasudeva. And in that separation, both Vasudeva and Devaki are becoming mad in their love for Krishna. So I actually just wanted to share something. And this is also where I got the title from, Savoring God, which is today's title, that there's a saint in the Christian tradition called Saint John the Cross. I've talked about him before also. And he's written this very nice poem. It's called the Spiritual Canticle of the Saint John the Cross. And what's very amazing in his writing is that he says exactly what Lord Chaitanya says in terms of love and separation. And he wrote this spiritual canticle, and the subtitle of this is God as the Bridegroom. So he was not completely in the Madhurya Ras like the gopis and Krishna, but he had this conception that God can be your lover. And so, just as a very short thing, I'm just going to share my screen here, so we can see this, that how this is actually something that any devotee in any tradition can experience, but especially the fullness only in Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's mercy. But how this how does he also know about this? Because how this mood of love can be experienced. This is the point, that they know about this because they're experiencing this love. He's a saint in the Christian tradition, so he's not an ordinary person. He was what is it called? He was he was one of the monks in that tradition. And so he writes this in his, I'm reading from here. He says, in his commentaries to the Canticle, as well as his other theological treatises, John of the Cross uses the verbs gustar and saberer, along with the corresponding nouns gusto and saber, as synonyms denoting a range of meanings that I render by the English word to savor. In Spanish, these verbs refers in general to the actions of tasting and liking, but more precisely to the palatal sensation of savoring. So he says that gustar or saber, he uses these verbs in relation to loving God. Very similar to our Sanskrit word rasa. which rasa literally means juice, in a palatal sensation, right? So juice or nectar, that is also rasa. In the same way, he is saying that loving God is like savoring him in a palatal sense. In John's writing, gustar and savor refer to the action through which the soul's senses, he speaks of the senses of the soul, which is very interesting. Most other Christians don't speak in this way. Soul senses, which mirror and communicate with the bodily senses, right? So we talk about spiritual senses and material senses, perceive, comprehend, and love God. This experience might be joyful or painful, but it is always savored. And this is the sentence that's very key here. This experience might be joyful or painful. So love in union, love in separation, but it is always savored, meaning the juice is always relished. Thus the Amada, which is the Amada is the same as the Gopi. She's the girl who's in love with God in his cantico, in the imagery that he's showing. He's the devotee, he's the girl who's in love with God, who's the bridegroom. The Amada of Cantico, who is the soul, theologically speaking, looks after the relish and the savor of love. In her communication with the divine lover, she enjoys the intimate savor of the spirit of love. Savoring is a mutual action that also denotes the way in which God, in his yearning for love, communicates with the soul through his voice, touch, and taste. Savoring is also the metaphor for the union of the soul with God. When the lover meets God as a lover, offers his Amada, Krishna as a lover offers the gopi a pomegranate that he first savors and then lets her savor, and which she then offers back to him. So that is a common savor of both together. And you may recall that in Krishna's pastimes, it's very described that how Krishna eats a betel nut, and then he offers that same half-eaten betel nut to the gopis. And here he's saying a pomegranate, that Krishna is eating a pomegranate and then offering it back to the Amada, who's that devotee. Savoring evokes the activities of all the spiritual senses. The soul can savor the smell of divine flowers, and God gives her to savor the sweetness of love. So flowers, right? It's always, Vrindavan is full of flowers. So flowers is a way in which love is communicated, offering flowers to the Lord, decorating him with flowers. And the devotee offers flowers to the Lord, and divine flowers, the main flower, the flower of their heart. And Krishna, in return, gives to the devotee the sweetness of his love. He gives the sweetness of his love. So, and then a last thing here, he says that it is this love, this down here, I'll come here. In the Spanish phrase, known by love, John takes advantage of the polysemy of the verb savor from the Latin sapere, which denotes both savoring and knowing, in order to reiterate the contrast between savoring and understanding. Rather than understanding divine truths, John says, his reader knows and savors them by means of love, that is, by means of mystical theology. As in all his writings, here John the Cross uses the term mystical theology, derived from the Greek hidden secret. And he says here, arguing that the nature of God, who goes out of himself in a complete ecstasy of self-giving because he alone has the ability to remain absolutely within himself, is differentiated in a unified way. And then this last sentence here. Through a cataphatic method that uses the instruments of reason, and through the apophatic method of mystical theology which goes beyond reason. So here in this last part that I was reading, he makes the point that that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also makes between jnana and vijnana, that how real knowledge is knowledge that is experienced through love. That the gopis and the devotees of the Lord, though they are not aware or though they don't remember the Lord, they are actually they don't remember the greatness of the Lord as a supreme personality of Godhead. They are actually knowing the Lord because they know the Lord through their love. And that's the difference between, he says, savoring and understanding. When we actually savor the Lord, when we actually love the Lord, then we actually know the Lord. His readers knows and savors them by means of love. He actually knows and savors the Lord by the means of his love. So, 2 points here that he mentions are very nice. One is that how Krishna, regardless if there is the experience of joy or pain, the devotee is always savoring the Lord. He himself is saying here that this very deep point that even the devotees who are externally in a painful situation are in the separation from the Lord, experiencing pain and separation, they're always still savoring him. And the second point here is that in this savoring, the Lord gives that sweetness of love. And that sweetness of love is actually knowing the Lord. Experiencing that is actually understanding who Krishna is. So Vasudeva and Devaki were actually, they knew the Lord. They actually were the Lord's parents because they were the greatest devotees of the Lord, because they were always in touch with him. They knew who Krishna is in that separation. They were constantly in touch with him. So I will stop here. I think we are just at time right now. So if there's any comments, further suggestions, corrections.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This is
Hare
Achish
Krishna.
Pradas. Please accept
Hare
my humble
Krishna.
obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharshila Prabhu. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Great messages, a lot of insights. Prabhu, I have a question. So the gopis who are able to go and meet Krishna during the mid of the night, and some were not. So you talked about they associated with Krishna mentally. In that platform, that is extremely really appreciable. But in my level, like in a mundane sense, I get disturbed when something that is easily obtainable for someone that is not getting for me for many years, the processing of the mind is very challenging. Now, how to take that? Why is that Krishna is not giving when something is such accessible to others? Why not to me? So in that mode, like how should I process? Because in that sense, when say with gopis who are constantly thinking about Krishna, they may also have that frustration or experience when when they were not in a position that's favorably go and meet Krishna as they like. When some gopis are getting and some are not getting, how to connect with my level of understanding and deal with that, Prabhu.
Yeah, I think that's a question we all ask, that, why is the process not working for me? Why is it not working for me? And in one lecture, Sachidananda Maharaj says, in fact, we should ask that question every day. We chant. He was saying in that lecture, he was saying that we chant our rounds every single day, and then we just assume that we're chanting, and obviously, we won't be experiencing love of God, and obviously tears will not be coming down our eyes. But he says that we should, why we assume that? He said, every day we should ask that I'm chanting, but I'm not chanting with any feeling. I'm chanting like my chanting is like, just like the sound of I don't know, chopping vegetables, just up and down the lips are going, but there's no feeling. So why have I not experienced love of God? Why am I not experiencing love of God? Right? And when we keep asking this question and we keep working on it, then one day then we experience that love of God. But if we don't work for it, if we don't ask this question, which you are asking, then we won't get it because we're not eager for it. We're okay not getting it. And like this example I've given of St. John the Cross, this was St. John the Cross's life. His life was constantly seeking God. Like he was not happy to be relaxed. He was not happy to be content in a very you could say orthodox and standard and normal way of reaching God. He kept on asking the question, why am I not getting love for God? And kept on seeking that and striving for that. So that's exactly as you have mentioned, that this is a very good question, and the answer only rests with us. That we have to ask ourselves, why have I not gotten it? What is it? What sort of knot in the heart am I not loosening? What what part of the process am I not practicing that I could practice? And I was talking to one devotee, and he said that he made a conscious resolution that he'd do 3 things this year in 2023 as a way of trying to push himself to the next level, whatever that level is, but to the next level. And one of those was, I think, that he would make it a point to seek out advanced association and take advantage of that association. Another one was that he would try to have close relationships with devotees. A third one was that he would really try to work on his chanting. Like that, he made certain goals that he did. And then after this year, he'll reassess. So the process works for sure. That we have to have complete faith. We are just lacking in some way.
Thank you, bro. That is interesting to do a retrospective on ourselves, like what worked well, what is not working, what should be stopped, and all those things. Thank you very much, bro.
Thank you. Yes, very nice point. Actually, you kind of, this whole discussion, you made it very practical by raising this issue. You actually made it very practical. So the point of all of this, reading about Vasudeva and Devaki and their great devotion to the Lord, is that we are trying to emulate that practically in our life. Yes.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanavad Pranam.
Dhanavad Pranam, Prabhu.
Prabhu, one of these, yesterday I had a chance to read.
Yes.
So one of them I forgot. That means when Vasudeva and Devaki, the moment Krishna was born, Vasudeva actually, he was so in ecstasy and very happy, and then he immediately offered 10,000 cows to the Brahmanas in his mind, mentally.
Yes.
So in that, the way the gopis had mentally did something for Krishna, that the one which Sachis the Prabhu just now asked. So the mentally, that even coming to that platform of understanding and say, can I offer this to Krishna mentally? It's that means how much that understanding of Krishna has to be there. And then why did you offer 10,000 cows to the Brahmanas? Because anything you do for Brahmanas will be pleasing to Krishna. That is why he offered the 10,000 cows to Brahmana. Right? That was the catch there. And now the another reflection was how much I know God, how much I understand God is, we are hearing every day. Yeah, we know that Krishna is supreme. We know we are part and parcel of Krishna. But I don't think I'm humble for, see, I'm not comparing. There is no comparison. But it is my understanding, my love, whatever I have. Okay. But if you look at the stalwart devotees like Narottam Das Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they are up there and they are telling, I am the worm in the stool and I'm so and so forth, right? How much that means, how much they understand God, is that how much they love God. So that's why they know God in such way. Because we know that Krishna is the supreme personality, but we are not acting in such way. We are still holding that I am the doer. Maybe I am not understanding. I'm not reflecting. I'm not. There is no way I can glorify Krishna in that way, right? So maybe we are there, but we are not there. So maybe throw some light on it, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's you. I think said it very nicely, actually. And what was the last sentence that you said? The last point, that we are there but we're not there. Can you?
That means we are in this moment, understanding and everything. Okay, Krishna is the supreme personality of God, but we don't have that humility, because the more you become, you know Krishna, that means you are completely humble and like a blade of grass. That's why otherwise why Uddhava will think I will become a blade of grass there.
Yes. Right. Yes. Yeah. This sentence, actually the one that struck me the most was Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami saying that I am lower than a worm in a stool. And then, and all the same, you're right. Uddhava saying that I want to be a blade of grass in Vrindavan, so the gopis can trample over me. I was thinking that this one of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, that on one hand, for us to feel that we may be artificial, but on the other hand, it's very helpful that when we are being treated like that, to remember that, because invariably at some point in our life we get treated like that, and then we can, then his words are there for, in some ways, for our comfort, for our consolation. That actually, this is the way Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is feeling, and this is the way I am feeling or being felt like. And so in the life of a devotee, I think we get, in the life of a devotee, we are going through these stages, we are experiencing these things, and this is why these things are mentioned in the scriptures. Like, to be a blade of grass in Vrindavan is a little harder for me to imagine, because I don't know what it is like to be in Vrindavan. I'm not even close to Vrindavan. So even a blade of grass in Vrindavan is actually feels very elevated, like even to reach Vrindavan is something very hard. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's statement that I am, lower than the worm and stool, well, in this material world, we have, full experience of that. And so they are actually giving us these instructions because in some ways they are foretelling that the sadhaka in their path of devotion will need to come to these levels of feeling. And we don't feel it constantly or spontaneously like they do, but we feel it at times. And then we will know that, okay, this is the instruction that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami said, that this is the way. In spite of this, I still need to continue my bhakti, because this is the way a devotee approaches his position. And so in spite of this situation, I need to continue my bhakti, because Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has inspired us to do so. And not just this one, but on many things, like like what was another one recently? Recently, just thinking how the example of the different devotees in their life stories, how different devotees go through those things. Yes, like the story of Parikshit Maharaj. We were relating it sometime just recently. One of, I think yourself or someone in a class, said how it's so similar to the life of Parikshit Maharaj. So Kadamba Kanana Maharaj's life is similar to the life of Parikshit Maharaj. So on one hand, Parikshit Maharaj is like, role model, kind of an otherworldly person, not very related to us or comparable to us. But on the other hand, a real blood and flesh devotee here is experiencing that. So that point that you said very nicely, there but not there, I think that very much applies to us. We're there because we practice and experience the same things, but we're not there because we're still in the practice stage. But we're there because we're very close. We're just, an arm's length away. On one hand, we're also very far because we have much to go forward with. But I think we're more close than we are far. Now that we've come under the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, we're actually very, very fortunate. And we are very close to being there. And that's why in his final message, right, Kadamba Kanana Maharaj had written how there's a great festival where I'm going, and I'll see you soon at that festival. Soon you'll be there joining that festival, and look forward to receiving you at that festival. So he was not speaking about himself, he was speaking about us, that soon you'll be joining that festival. So I think he was saying that we're not there, but we're almost there.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you for your reflection, your understanding. That's, I think the more we love, we may know and we may understand that we know Krishna a little bit. So
Yes,
thank
the more
you.
we love, the more we get it. Yes. And that's actually the heart of it, isn't it? Even though it's so simple and it sounds almost sentimental, but it's all about love, right? The more we love one another, the more we love Krishna, the more we are reaching the goal, the more things become revealed to us. Like St. John the Cross is saying that loving is understanding. That is actually vijnana, that is factual realization of Krishna. Through love, we actually see him, and then we actually know him.
Yeah, now I'm thinking now when parents know their children very well what they are, that means we love them in such a way that we may understand even my son is morose, my daughter is morose. We may know that why he is morose. So that means when Krishna, that means the pure devotees can even feel when I what does that mean? When Swarup Damodar and other associates, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was feeling something, they knew the heart of and then they say, this is what we need to do. That means they could understand the heart of Lord Chaitanya. So similarly, I think if we know something going on with the children, we come to know, oh, this is exactly, the children doesn't have to tell us. We know this is what's going on. Maybe,
yes.
That way I'm relating. So in this, similarly, we should know how to, we know Krishna, that means we are still not understanding Krishna. That's why we may not know.
Yes. Wow. Yes, very nice, Prabhuji. Well said. That kind of is the conclusion. Then we actually know the heart. Then we can feel the heart. We were discussing this in the last retreat, that the real devotee knows the heart, not just the follows the instruction, but he knows the heart of the spiritual master and of Krishna, both.
Yes, Prabhu. Anyway, thank you. This is, I think, the more we discuss it, more churning, some realizations will come. So
yes, that's true. Thank you. Any final comment, question?
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for the discussions and your nice class. I was really appreciating your response to Sachisutta Prabhu's question. Generally, when things doesn't go their way, the thoughts go to the devotees who don't give us the service or opportunity, or further to Krishna. Okay, why is he not letting me do this? But I really like the way how you have directed the focus to ourselves in our own heart. What is that I can do to really qualify myself and go forward? I feel that's just so the core and essential of the progress for bhakti. So I really appreciated that. And the other point you were mentioning about this prayer of Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, I have never heard that. I mean, that's like, generally these pure devotees, oh, I just would like to have you as my son and have that relationship. But this prayer, so selfless, and they just want to be the instrument for that purpose and serve in those roles as parents. That was very touching, to see that. I mean, we do know pure devotees are selfless and they just want to serve Krishna. But this particular prayer, it was really touching, Prabhu. And also this, I'm sorry, I forgot the saint's name.
But John the Cross, Saint John the Cross.
Yeah, it's amazing to see. I mean, because, for us, probably when we hear, oh, Krishna consciousness is the only way. Yes, it is the only way. But what I'm seeing is like my perspective is broadening a little bit. We don't have to be like, kind of narrow it down and look down upon others. How these most elevated understanding of Lord Chaitanya, the saint was blessed, I mean, because of his connection with God. So I was just appreciating, that perspective that when we see others around who may not be directly practicing Krishna consciousness, we don't have to look down upon them. We can still be very respectful. We don't know, I mean, what is their practice, authenticity, everything, but we can at least be respectful, and who knows how Krishna empowers or, gives these realizations. Yeah, very, very beautiful and very enlightening, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Yeah. For me also, it was on your first point of Vasudeva and Devaki and Nanda Maharaj. In Prabhupada actually, in one place in the Bhagavatam, I don't remember where it is, he contrasts them and he says that Vasudeva and Devaki had prayed to have the Lord as their child, so therefore the Lord came as their child. But Drona and Droni in their previous life, and Vasudeva and Devaki were Prishni and Sutapa, so they had that prayer, and then Drona and Droni in their previous life, they only prayed that may you appear and show your pastimes all over the world. And so because their prayer was actually even more glorious, Krishna actually blessed them even more. But again, this is on the absolute level. So Vasudeva and Devaki were equally dear to the Lord, but just as a way of, kind of within the absolute spiritual world, spiritual logic, Prabhupada was saying that how that was, in one sense, even a higher prayer. And then secondly, regarding Saint John the Cross, for me also, this is why I shared it also, because as devotees, we often don't realize that these feelings of spontaneous love of God do exist in other traditions, although in a very minor way in comparison to Lord Chaitanya's, openly discussing it. They exist there, and their existence actually, in some ways, further reinforces our faith in what Lord Chaitanya is saying, because it's present all over. All people who are loving God are having the same realizations. And I even thought that maybe Saint John the Cross read, the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. I mean, there was communication, and they were reading Indian texts. And so maybe he read it and then he sort of imbibed it and therefore wrote these things. And as it was often the case with many of these, even the Greek philosophers, they would read the Upanishads and things, but then they wouldn't directly quote it, simply because especially in the Christian tradition, because they didn't want to confuse their followers. That, well, if they say this is from this book, then their followers will go and start reading other religions and traditions, and that was not accepted by the church. So oftentimes they didn't actually give credit to their source, but they imbibed the message and then retold it in their own words, because his description is so similar. Like we see the pomegranate, they didn't have betel nuts, they had pomegranates. So Krishna's biting to the pomegranate, giving it to the Amada, who's the gopi, and the gopi is savoring it. And so definitely they show that there's academic proof that like Plato had read the Upanishads, because some of the ways that he describes the soul, for example, is exactly the way that the Upanishads describe it. He calls the soul a swan, a hansa, and we also call the soul a swan, and a great soul is a paramahansa, right? And it's too close. It can't be by chance. So scholars say that this was actually he had, in touch. But Plato himself never gives credit to the Upanishads. So like this, it's possible that he actually, St. John the Cross was actually reading the Ras Leela. Who knows? Okay, so this is a good time to end here. It's 8:30. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.